What do you think are the major threats and inhibiting factors the Australian digital industry might face over the next few years? For example, consumer privacy concerns, lack of government support, government regulation, or international competition.
I also think as an industry we need to speak more collectively as one, and we need to deliver our message to marketers and the government as one industry, as opposed to having a divisive continuing to split digital into so many different categories: video, mobile, social, context, search. We make it harder and harder. Digital was supposed to be easier.
I worry that Australian small businesses will not have the ability to compete and innovate without cheap broadband, fast broadband and government assistance to help them get online and grow into this new global economy.
Attitude of the government to the internet and who can work out what that is. It changes all the time and it's quite destabilising for a young and emerging industry. You'd have hoped the government would have a grander vision.
Government, people, access to capital. Those are the three things that at the end of the day will inhibit our potential long-term growth, but in other countries they're more freely available. Government's less regulatory, there are far more people who have got skills and capabilities, and access to capital to fund all of that is far more readily available.
The primary ones, leaving aside the consumer side, will be international competition. We're not alone in building large broadband networks. Many countries have already got them in place, and better ones. At the moment, we're very, very good at keeping an eye on sort of what's happening in the world. We're very competitive internationally in terms of digital. But there is the worry that the distraction around the NBN and the fact that we could end up with, for a while anyway, a sort of walled garden where everything works brilliantly here in Australia might actually make us less competitive.
I think as a country we just need to be more innovative and support people with good ideas, because if we don't, they'll go somewhere else. And I think within this country there's too much I'd rather see you fail, and what they call the tall poppy syndrome, which we're all very well aware of, than backing people. Mind you, there's not too many parts of the world that do it. I mean, you look probably on the west and east coast of the States, there's probably good examples. But I think as a culture we need to harness these people with good ideas and back them, because the power and what's available to do online is so much bigger than anything that we've encountered in the past, especially in this decade.
I think privacy is the big issue moving forward. I think we're collating a lot of information about people, their habits, what they like, what they don't like, what concerns them, what scares them, what excites them. It's a lot of information. It's a pretty rich kind of database, effectively. I don't think anyone's ever really asked the consumer whether they can collect that information about them, and more importantly, whether they can use that information about them for some sort of financial gain.
I think that the most obstructive things to prevent the development of digital industries in Australia will be the myopic perspectives of many of our political leaders.
I think the trends are towards privacy, and I think that will continue. So any campaign or any application needs to take those privacy considerations into account, and certainly the government is monitoring that very, very closely, as we've seen with what's happening with the premium SMS market.
Look, I think the real dangers and threats are that we're at a pivotal point in terms of some amazing technologies and behavioural patterns that we're seeing in terms of people connecting, sharing information, being able to identify people's locations. These are sensitive pieces of information. If they're used in the most effective way, then that can provide real value to customers, and brands can capitalise on that. However, if that data is abused in the wrong way, then you can really see the danger of a heavy-handed government coming down to restricting those services from a digital point of view.
The government really focus their energy in trying to protect or frame one context of privacy and protect internet audiences, protect obviously children from sexual predators, but the reality is that sort of stuff is not necessarily happening through our mainstream internet, or when I say mainstream internet, our usual internet consumption. It's happening in other ways. So I think they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
We have got to move away from being a silo, the digital silo. It's media in a Marcom's world. So digital has got to be part of media. There needs to be organisational, structural changes. There needs to be remuneration changes, cost and revenue model changes. The whole way businesses do business is going to change so that digital isn't out there as a silo. So I think that's a major threat to the development of this industry, is that it's still parked out there as a self-appointed silo when it needs to be part of the mainstream.
The biggest inhibiting factors for digital over the next few years is clients' budgets are not getting any bigger. So the number of digital marketing channels or the digital channels is growing and growing and growing every year, but the clients' budgets are staying exactly the same. So we're going to have to make sure that whatever we are doing is working, and ROI is going to become really, really important.
Well, I think privacy is a big one, and over-regulation. I think also lack of investment or broad investment across the industry.
I think the digital media industry can be a threat to itself. There are some of us and some parts of our industry that are so full of themselves that think we are so bloody important because we're at the forefront, and we've got some seriously big egos growing. We're not that important. We're obviously inherently integrated into just about every other society, but I reckon we can come down off our pedestal.